CWPA Remote Professional Edition, where we take a look at water polo players and where they are today.
This man was a member of the Michigan State University Spartans men's water polo club team from 2006 to 2009. After graduating with a degree in mechanical engineering, he went to rival University of Michigan to get his master's. He then began a 4-year stint with the Ford Motor Company in various areas of engineering, and now he is the senior design release engineer at General Motors. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Brent Augustine. Brent, thanks so much for appearing on CWPA Remote.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today.
So normally I just end up asking my guests how and why did you end up choosing their university, but in your case, your freshman year was kind of interesting. So clue our viewers in onto how you chose to do what you did in your freshman year.
Yeah, so I had decided when I was in high school that I was interested in playing water polo in college. I had also decided that I was interested in studying mechanical engineering. So trying to find a balance between those two was tough. And wanted to go play varsity. Coming out of Michigan, you look more at the small varsity programs. And then ultimately ended up staying close to home. I'm from West Michigan, so I ended up going to Grand Valley. I went there for 1 semester, decided that my heart and everything about me growing up and everything in Michigan was that I wanted to be a Spartan. So I ended up transferring to Michigan State after the first semester. And yeah, so ended up carrying through with mechanical engineering as well as playing water polo. So got the best of both worlds.
So do you remember your very first practice at Grand Valley and then of course at Michigan State?
Yeah, my first practice at Grand Valley, we were practicing at a local high school, and we showed up, and I knew the captain of the team because he went to my high school, so I already knew him and I knew some of the guys. So it went very smoothly. We got in; those guys were very get down to business and just do your job. So we just got right in and started going, which was a little different than my first practice at Michigan State, where there was I don't want to say hazing, but there were rituals that went on where we were jumping off 7 meters. We were introducing ourselves. We were doing a lot of those kind of things because a lot of us had just met each other. So a little bit different, but both of them were very water polo centric.
And how about your first game for both teams?
The first game that I remember playing in college was I was playing for Grand Valley, but I actually was playing at Michigan State. The Spartan Invite was the first tournament of the year. And Spartan Invite used to be held at the same time as a home game for football. And the pool is an outdoor pool right next to the football stadium. So in one of my first games, I ended up scoring a goal at the same time that Michigan State scored a touchdown. So it's the first goal I remember because 75,000 people cheered. So it probably wasn't my first goal, but it's the first one I remember.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's probably more people than have ever cheered for a goal in water polo in history.
Nice.
So what is your single best, or if you have 2 or 3, give us your great memories of your college water polo career.
So I have what I would say are countless great memories. Obviously, anytime that you can come away with a ring, or in my case, I have 3, winning 1 with Grand Valley and 2 with Michigan State, playing 4 straight national championship games. All of those are amazing, but some of my best memories are more of things that I did with my teammates or situations that we had traveling out on the road. So,
and any disappointments along the way?
Yeah, my 3 of our starters would all consider it the worst game of our careers. It just happened to be in the national championship game in 2007. We had beaten that season. We had beaten the top 5 seeds at nationals other than ourselves. So we went in very confident. We were feeling very good. We just had to go in and take care of business. And we fell apart in the second half of the national championship game. I missed a shot with 30 seconds left. We had the go-ahead goal taken away because of a penalty back the pool. So it was kind of a perfect storm of bad situations for us, and we ended up losing in double overtime to Cal Poly in what was not our best game, but was still a good game.
Yeah, I mean, double overtime, you were still in it all the way through. So I'd be interested, and I'm sure our viewers would be interested because you've got a dual perspective. on your reflections on your college water polo career, and including anything that was particularly funny or unusual about your time, both with Grand Valley and with the Spartans.
Yeah, I've got a couple of these, mostly based around my career with the Spartans. My senior year, the Michigan State has an outdoor pool and an indoor pool. The indoor pool broke our senior year, so we were forced to practice outdoor until well into November, up until nationals. So, and being a club team, we didn't practice until 9:00 at night. So we were outside in Michigan playing in the snow at night under the lights for a month, and it was a very unusual and awesome situation. We were lucky no one got sick. We were lucky that the giant bugs in the water didn't get to any of us. We have 30 guys who all day are learning how to wrestle with each other, and we're all scared of some 3-inch water bug. But it was playing outside is fun. Playing in the rain is fun. Playing in the snow is an experience that I didn't know that I would ever have, and I got that. So that was fantastic. And then
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. The other one I was going to share is we went to a tournament out in California. I don't remember which year, but our plane was delayed, so we were late to the tournament, and we actually had to ask our rival Michigan to switch games with us so that we could make our game and not just miss it. So we get to the pool. We had no time for warm up. We had to jump right in and play UCLA Club or UC Davis Club or one of the D3 varsity teams. I don't remember, but we jumped right in, and we were all throughout the game. We're enjoying being outside in October, because in Michigan we hadn't seen the sun in months. So we're very pale, very white out there. And then if you we're standing out in our Speedos. And then if you pan to the other side of the pool, the Southern California boys are all wrapped up in their robes, shivering a little bit. So it's a pretty entertaining thought when you think about the differences across the country and how when we line up next to them, how different things are.
Now, you're probably shocking the California guys by asking them, how long does it take to get to the beach between games, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Suntanning never hurt anybody. Now, before we get off your college water polo career, you did mention arch rival Michigan, but you actually went to Michigan. So did you do any club water polo when you were at Michigan?
I did not. I debated it. I thought about it. I ultimately chose to focus on grad school. But I will also say that I took every college exam with a Michigan State pencil or pen, and I wore Michigan State clothes under my gown when I graduated. And I will also say that any day you can beat Michigan is a good day. So I did go there. I support their engineering wholeheartedly, but the Spartan in me will never allow me to align as a Wolverine.
All right. Well, before we get into your actual current job, be interested to find out how you got into the automotive industry.
So I actually was not planning on going into automotive at all. Like you said, I studied mechanical engineering, but my focus was on alternative energies. I wanted to work on wind farms and try to find sustainable energy sources. I actually got my job because of water polo. I graduated, and I had one of my teammates had a friend who was a recruiter for Ford. And I was from West Michigan. I love West Michigan, beaches, lakes. We have all of that, just cold winters. But Grand Rapids is beautiful. And but I decided to take the interview. So I drove over to Ford, which is about 2.5 hours away from my family and my home, and went and had an interview. And it was 2009, so high unemployment numbers in Michigan. I interviewed against about 25 different people. And I wasn't expecting to get the job. I was a decent student, but I wanted to fully experience all that college had to offer. So my grades were, I would say, so-so. And had a good interview, but wasn't expecting to get the job. And then ended up getting it. So it was awesome. I had a discussion with the hiring manager later, and he basically told me that I got the job because I played college sports. He said I wasn't the most academically accomplished. I wasn't the most experienced engineer. I didn't have any automotive experience really to speak of, but from being the captain of a successful collegiate team, he was able to glean everything that he needed to. He could tell that I was going to work hard. He could tell that I would be a role player or a leader, depending on what the situation called for. He knew that I'd be able to persevere through adverse situations and be able to push through failure in order to find success. So he was able to take all of those traits away and ultimately decided that that was more valuable to him than some of the other measurables that you could have. He was the captain of his college soccer team, and my direct supervisor was the captain of his college hockey team. So the three of us got there in similar ways, and we worked very well together. So in a way, my water polo and career are very tied together.
Well, that's an important lesson, and we'll circle back to that at the end of the interview. The time you spent at Ford, you went through various positions, and then you made a change. And why and how did that change come about?
So first off, for anyone who's not from Michigan, Ford, Chrysler, and GM are all within 20 miles of each other. They're all very close, but people don't often. In the past, people didn't often switch between them. So the way I had come in, the work I had done, I had put some feelers out, and GM was very interested in me, and they offered me. They gave me an offer that I honestly I couldn't refuse, and ultimately found out it was closer to my house to drive to GM than it was to drive to Ford. And I had switched teams before. I went from Grand Valley on one side of a national championship to Michigan State on the other side. So I figured what could be the worst that could happen, and so I decided to take the opportunity. And it's been a wonderful 5.5 years since I made the jump.
Yeah, and you did go from one arch rival to another arch rival in your schooling, even if you didn't do it in water polo. So you've held 3 positions at GM. I know our viewers would be really interested in hearing from you a little bit about each of those positions and what you did day to day.
Okay, so when I came over to GM, it was as a senior architecture engineer. So the new Cadillac XT6 that's on the road now, my job was working through computer-aided design and different integration techniques to essentially put that car together. You're kind of creating a big puzzle, trying to make sure that all of the regulations fit, all of the parts fit, everything can be powered. And so the role from a day-to-day basis is to work with designers and make sure that the puzzle fits together, essentially. And then I was in that role for a bit. And then the chief engineer liked working with me. So he actually hired me on to work under him, where I was a senior program engineering manager, and did that role for a while, also on the Cadillac XT6. And it ultimately sent me down to Tennessee, where I lived for a year, and was the product development launch lead for the program in the plant.
Okay, and now in your current position, tell us, what is it that you do?
So right now I'm a senior design release engineer. So I'm working on battery electric vehicles at GM. It's a big push that we're making through Cadillac brands as well as through our others. I work on exterior components, so fascias, spoilers, trim pieces, emblems, all those things are what my team does. So from a day-to-day basis, I'm kind of the team lead, where we have validation engineers, manufacturing engineers, compartment engineers, all these other engineers, but I'm the owner of my parts. So everything starts and ends with me. I have to own the cost, the design, all of that. So kind of like being a little team leader for all of the engineers that interact with my components.
So in a way, you've gotten to your early goal of getting into sustainable energy and things like that.
That's one of the reasons I came to the battery team. Yeah, absolutely.
So how has the pandemic affected your particular working situation and what you do week in and week out?
So we've been lucky because GM didn't have to go through any layoffs. We didn't have to deal with job loss. There was a lot of shuffling, so it created a lot of chaos as to which programs we were on and which components we were managing. But GM is so big, and we interact with people from China, and our proving grounds are in Arizona, and we work with people in Silicon Valley. So we are very well set up to work remotely. So we flipped the switch in March. Everyone went home. We all worked from home. We all have computers and phones and hotspots and all of that. So it has been different working from home and integrating with people who are at their homes, but we've been able to be relatively successful without having too much of a hiccup to our overall system.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I guess, finally in the business area, where does Brent go from here?
That's a tough call. I really do enjoy working for GM. I really did enjoy working for Ford. There are a lot of opportunities for anyone who's working in one of these large companies or other large manufacturing companies around the world. But I just had some discussions about going to work in HR or marketing or trying my skills in another place or staying within engineering. So right now the goal is to do my role and do it as well as I can, which is something I learned playing water polo. Be the role player, do it to the best of your ability, and good things will happen. So right now, just focusing on doing the best job I can and see what opportunities open for me.
Well, that's an excellent lead in to my next question, which is we've talked a bit about your college water polo career, and we've talked a bit about your business career. Tell us a bit about how your collegiate water polo career has impacted your business career.
Well, I think the answer to that is it. Like I said earlier, it completely impacted me. I would not have gone into automotive. I would have been in Grand Rapids or flying around the world working on wind farms or something. I'd be doing something completely different if it weren't for connections I made playing water polo. And then I could go on for a very long time about parallels between corporate life and collegiate team life. Role players.
Give us a couple examples.
Plans are good, but being able to adapt is better, right? You have a plan going into a game, and then you get in there, and then it turns out that they're going to run an M drop, and you were not expecting them to run an M drop. Now you have to change your whole offense, or they're running a 6-in that you weren't expecting them to run. You had a plan set up, and then you get out there, and they just completely messed up your plan. So we see that at work all the time. We'll put a part together. It'll be on the computer, it's fantastic. And then as soon as we get into validation testing, we find out that if it's negative 30 degrees out and you're going around a corner at 40 miles an hour and you hit a rock at a certain angle, it can chip the front. You find that out. You weren't expecting that. That had nothing to do with where you were. Everything was perfect on the computer, and then you find out that it's not. So then you have to roll with the punches. You have to figure out what to do to get around that and still be successful.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you literally stopped and said to yourself, you know what, I can draw from that and whatever that is from my college water polo career and deal with this situation? Has that ever arisen?
Actually, I have an example for something very similar to that.
Okay.
When I was playing for Michigan State, we were at a tournament at Miami of Ohio playing against Texas. We were up comfortably in the second quarter, and then one of my teammates had his finger broken by a guy on the other team. Broke it. It was bent sideways. He had to get pins in it. He was out for a while. It was ugly. It was gross. And our team had a very emotional reaction. The rest of the game, we weren't focused on trying to outscore them by as much as we could. We were focused on revenge, and ultimately, we ended up losing the game by, I think, 1 in a game that we should have won handily. And so I thought back to that, and I was thinking about how I can't let other people's actions or thoughts dictate what I had. So we were down in Tennessee for work, and it was very busy, lots of chaos, tons of hours, and And we were getting requests from all sorts of people. We were getting requests from all these different teams with all these different motives that weren't necessarily aligned with what we needed and wanted to do. So when I thought back to that situation that we had at Miami, where I let other people dictate my thoughts and my feelings, I sat the group down, I sat my team of engineers down, and we had a discussion about what our goals are. So we were able to sit down and say, these are our goals. This is what we need to do to reach them. And we need to make sure that those are our primary focus and that everything else is still important, still valuable, but we need to focus on what our goals are. So we were able to be very successful. We beat all our metrics, had a very successful launch. So that was one lesson. The other lesson to this story is we found out later when we watched the video that my teammate actually broke his own finger by getting it caught in the cap of the opponent. So the opponent, they didn't even do anything to deserve all of the emotion that we were putting into the game. So we jumped to conclusions and ended up losing the game because we couldn't control our emotions and we didn't keep our eyes on what the prize was.
That's a great example. Now, when people are in your position, interviewers often will do the age-old question of, what would you say to your younger self? But in my scenario, here, I prefer to go the opposite way. I'd like to know what college water polo player Brent Augustine would say to well-established engineer Brent Augustine today.
Well, that's a tough one. I'm sure college water polo Brent would ask a lot of questions to see if all of the plans came through, and trying to think of a specific question I would ask. But essentially, the important thing that I would have asked is, are you being a good person, and are you making good decisions? So I think that would be, I had a lot of, we moved a lot growing up. I was the new kid a lot from my dad's work. So I was very aware that plans change all the time. So I don't think that college Brent would have settled in and asked if I was married to so-and-so or working in the job at such and such. I think it would be more of a, have you made the right decisions based on the situations that you have in front of you? I think that would be the question.
Good question. So finally, we have lots of high school water polo players and their parents who are watching this and are looking at going to college. And we have college water polo players that are looking at potential careers after they graduate. What pieces of advice would you give to them about being involved in college water polo as it can relate to their postgraduate career?
I would say that playing water polo in college has made a huge influence on my life, not just the job I have or the skill set I have, but just who I am as a person. I would say that I would absolutely recommend it. I would recommend it to everyone. But I would also recommend making sure that you go to a school for academic reasons. Pick a program that you want to do long term, and then find ways to tailor your water polo experience to getting you where you want to be.
Oh, that's great advice. Hopefully everybody listening and watching has taken it to heart. He followed up a very successful career at Michigan State, national championship at Grand Valley, to become a premier engineer in the automotive industry. Brent Augustine has been my guest today on CWPA Remote. Brent, thanks so much for sharing your insights on college water polo and its impact on working career.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Until next time on CWPA Remote, this is George Gross Jr. wishing all of our viewers the very best in and out of the pool.